Rick, how are you?
Hey, good morning, Keith Jones. How's it going, man?
Good man, it's great to see you. You fresh from the world tour, the worldwide tour. I love it. Just got back from Turkey. Man, the guys, we just enjoy the text messages with the pictures and a little bit of journal entry. We feel like we're there with you, Rick. We love you so much.
Oh, man, thank you so much. It was really inspiring to be there, but also to have support from back home as well. It was a great trip, and it was great to be in communication while I was gone.
Awesome. Inspired by your trip, here's the title of this episode. It is Got Travel Plans? Take your practice with you. So why don't you kick it off by sharing a little bit about, whether or not you had to apply your practice, and if so, how?
Wow. Okay, cool. Um, Sheesh. Well, for me, the practice involves just a regimen of things that we've talked about many times, but it's basically three major components. It's the idea that you maintain cardio fitness, you do resistance training, and then also you work on your mind and emotions. And we do that with all sorts of different things, mostly by being mindful of what we're doing, living our lives on purpose, and also being mindful of the effect that we have on other people. And that translates into a behavior that is, I think, hopefully kind and other oriented, but also at the same time respecting our own personal boundaries. All of those things are challenges. When you hit the road, they're challenges. I had a break because it was solo, so I don't have anyone else I have to worry about. You know, as men, we tend to be guardians and protectors. That's our role, and providers. And so I didn't have that role to play. And so when I'm solo, I just have to worry about me, which is usually a handful because I'm so judgmental and willing to see that the negative and the terrible things that not terrible, but things that are inconvenient and focus on those. So I had many, many challenges this trip because I'm older now. My physical limitations are starting to kick in. So I tore a meniscus. I had to get a brace to put that on to continue to walk. And then I also had an upper respiratory infection, and I got to try out the Turkish health system. So that was pretty cool too. I really got a kick out of that. But I think I'm being a little flip, but the point is that no matter where you go, it doesn't matter about the external environment. It doesn't matter about the challenges, the new challenges that might confront you in a new place. It's about maintaining what you've been doing at
Mhm.
home that's been so rewarding, that's been such a source of peace and inner contentment for you. So for all of the things that I went through, I applied the practice, and the practice came through like a champ. And most of the time, when I started to feel a little bit like, oh, this is too much, I bounced right back when I did my meditation, when I got to the gym, when I was able to focus on what I was doing that was wrong, that I don't want to have in my life, like judging other people and feeling negative and feeling down. Once I caught myself, went right back into the routine as if I were home.
What's interesting about what you shared was it wasn't that you needed, the transportation to be a certain way. That wasn't what got you back, on the right side of enjoying your trip. It wasn't about whether or not they seated you quickly in the restaurant or if they ran out of a certain food. It wasn't about whether it was too hot or whether you tore your meniscus or not. It was none of the external things. It was all about when you grounded yourself in your mindfulness practice, then you were able to practice acceptance and gratitude, and you were back. So none of the external things changed. All those are still the same. I'm assuming that you suffered a meniscus tear there, and you probably left there with the same meniscus tear. Am I correct?
Yeah, it happened toward the end of the trip, thankfully. I was there 2 weeks, so the first 10, 12 days was fine, although I was pushing it so much. Where I stayed was on a hill, and so I had to walk up the hill a couple times a day. It wasn't like Camelback or Piesta. It wasn't like that significant, but it was probably, maybe eight or nine floor levels,
Right.
like in a high rise. So it was like a stairmaster every day.
Yeah.
And I think what happened was after 8, 10, 12 days of that, my leg just said, you're nuts, and quit. So I didn't have that problem early on. And thankfully that was great because I got to see as much as I wanted to see and walk as much as I wanted and
Yeah.
didn't have any issues.
Yeah, and when you did have it though, the last few days when which you were there, it wasn't like it healed itself so you can continue having a good trip. You made a conscious effort that with the torn meniscus, you're gonna finish the trip in the right mind space, with the right kind of attitude and be able to really appreciate what the trip had to offer. So just really well done, Rick. I mean, I found for myself that when I'm traveling, man, I better have that practice packed away. I better have it with me, because the slightest thing could easily set me off or my mind off, and it's off to the races. So just really, really well done. Were there any parts of the trip that you found that you were grateful for, that was a deeper sense of gratitude than in your previous trips? For the audience who doesn't know, Rick is an avid traveler. He is just a resource of lived experiences in his own life, as well as just being a active listener of other people in the cultures that he has, frequented. So, Rick, is there anything about this trip that's a little bit different than previous trips in which you've been around the world?
Well, what a great question. This is the first trip in maybe 20 years where I've stayed in one place for longer than a week. I was there 2 solid weeks, and I got to know the house manager and his family very well. And the guy across the cobblestone street that I was staying in, I had a tall Airbnb, and they let out the top floor for tourists. So that's where I was. Great views, beautiful spot. But it's a B and B, it's not what you'd be used to. It's not the Hyatt, let's put it that way, which I love. I have my own little hot plate. I have a little fridge. I do my own cooking. I buy fresh groceries at the market. I got to know the people in the marketplace. But here was the one cool thing that I really got out of this trip that I hadn't before. The guy across the street and I became good buddies. He's probably 65-ish. He's probably way overweight. He is a Georgian. He comes from Georgia, which is near Armenia. It used to be one of the republics, alleged republics, one of the satellite countries of the Soviet Union. Now it's an independent country, but it was invaded by Russia. And in the Georgian war, he lost his mother, his father, his wife, and his child. He has no family. He showed me his scars. His calf is missing because it was shot off in the same burst of machine gun fire that took out his family. We must have spent almost every evening, at least 20 minutes, communicating by Google in his Russian, my Pidgin Turkish, his Pidgin English, back and forth, sharing pictures. And I was just consumed with the amount of positive interest that he had in something outside of himself. I mean, that's a recipe for shutting down. That's a recipe for saying nobody can touch me based on what I've been through. That wasn't his attitude at all. He wanted to know about sports in America. He wanted to know why I had come and spent so long there, why it was that I was even spending time with him. He was very curious. And I just was so emotionally taken with this guy. I felt like I was leaving home when I left. I had a bond with the guy, and I felt sad for him because his life all day is managing this B&B, which is nothing more than making sure the maids show up when the people leave, and then the new people come in and they pay. Very simple kind of work, and maybe it takes an hour a day. The rest of the day, you know what he does? He sits on his little stool outside of his doorway, and he has tobacco that he buys from a local farmer. And tobacco is a big deal in Turkey. And then he has a little mechanical rolling device, and he rolls cigarettes all day. So he may do a carton of cigarettes, and then he'll sell each pack for $1 or $2. And that's how he gets his dough. So when I first got there, we would have tea. That's a sort of a national drink of Turkey. And then after that, obviously he liked beer, so I'd bring a bunch of beer over, and would have beer and try to Google our way through his life experience and mine. It was very joyful. It was a wonderful experience.
Man, just how easy it is when we're open-hearted to connect with the humanity and other people, right? With
Everybody's the same, Keith. The whole world is the same. We all want something better for our kids. We don't want war. We don't want people to be angry. We want to cooperate. We love art. We love each other. You just got to tap into that instead of figuring all the differences. Yo, we're so the culture. Can't speak the language. I don't know the all non, all nonsense.
Man, that's so great, Rick. Thank you so much. I love you and welcome home.
Hey, thanks, babe. Good to be back. I really appreciate it. Thanks, Keith. Adios.
Adios, Rick.